All right, I've decided I'm going to do the windows first because in order to do the reflectors and the door handle, I'm going to need to smooth the this geometry. So I think it's just going to be much easier to make the windows if we do that before it's smooth, just because we'll be dealing with less geometry. It'll help us get smoother surfaces and things like that. So we're going to make windows first. But before I do that, I want to clean up my scene a little bit again. And again, the fastest way to sort of get everything in one group without all these empty transform nodes is just to grab everything and combine it together. So we're going to just do a mesh combine, delete history, right? All those empty group nodes go away. And then we can mesh, separate, and then we can just rename this group to Ford Pinto. Right, that's the easiest way to sort of just get everything out of one group and into another group. All right, so windows. The easiest one's obviously going to be this back window because it's sort of like an enclosed circle. So let's go ahead and start with that one first. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sort of try to get this filled in, and then we'll work on smoothing it out and stuff like that. So I'm just going to go and bridge this surface. We did at one point have the geometry for this back window, but I think I deleted it, so I'm just going to remake it. But all I'm going to do is just make a bridge here like this, and then I'm going to go to mesh fill hole, right? And then we can kind of join up like this, and make some edge loops like this. And I don't care too much about it being flat. We'll deal with that here in a moment. So I'm just going to kind of grid this out. Oops, like so. And then we want to just extract this piece of geometry. So I'm just going to select all of these faces in here, and we're going to do mesh, edit mesh, extract. Right, so now this is two separate pieces of geometry. And for the most part, that is our window. Now I do want to round it just a little bit. So all I'm going to do, and I'm going to do this very carefully, is one at a time, we're going to grab like all of these interior verts. And I'm just going to move them up a tad and over like this. And then I'm going to deselect sort of like the ring around them like that. So now I just have like these internal 6 pieces of geometry, and I'm going to do the same thing to those. I'm just going to move them up and over a little bit to kind of round that surface out. So now when we smooth that, we should get like a nice round surface. And again, look at those highlights, make sure there's no like lumpiness going on. Overall, I think that looks pretty good. Now that's the easy one. We're going to have to deal with the others a little bit more carefully, right? I think the hardest one's probably going to be this side window. So let's go ahead and do the front window. And we're kind of going to do the same thing here. So what I'm going to do instead of just extruding down, because we don't really have an edge to extrude down from here, So I'm going to grab this edge and we're going to extrude all the way out like this. And we want to try to line this up to go sort of under the hood a little bit, sort of like where it's at. Maybe move it forward a little bit like this. And then I want to try to match the number of edges up here. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 edges in there. So just kind of explain this again. I always like to start in the middle, right? Because I just feel like it's easier to get round surfaces when you start in the middle. So I'm going to start in the middle like this for my first edge. And then I'm going to move that into position. Like that. And then we'll go in the middle of that one, right? So we'll go in the middle of that one, move that one in position. And then we'll go in the middle of this one. This one doesn't need a lot, but just a little bit. And we're probably going to need to move this down a little bit as well. Let's go ahead and see if we can just go ahead and do that and move that down into position. We just want it to go under the hood. If we go back and look at our reference, let me bring up my pure ref. This pillar right here goes under the hood, right? So it doesn't attach to this, it kind of goes under it. Let's see if I can find a better view. There we go. So it kind of goes under. There's like a chrome lip right there, which we will make. But I don't know, because there's different versions, right? So that may not be. Yeah, there's a little bit of that chrome lip there too. So yeah, we just want it to go slightly under the hood there. And then let's see, we probably need one more in the middle of this one. And so I think that you just end up getting much smoother surfaces if you try to go by half. So just trying to, so we need one more somewhere. Maybe bring this one over. You know, it may seem like this is, again, like a very sort of tedious thing to do. And it, you know, I think a lot of people will look at something like this and say, well, the movements you're making and the adjustments you're making are so small, they're probably inconsequential. And while that might be true in some cases, I just find that taking the care, right, to make sure you get like these nice smooth curves everywhere sort of ensures you get the best results possible when you're doing things this way, right? And like whenever there's a vert like this one right here that's kind of out of place, I don't want to move it, right? I don't want to move that specific vert, because what's going to happen when I try to move this vert is I'm going to mess this angle up, right? So if I start moving this around, that angle is going to change, and that's going to give me a wavy or lumpy surface. So this is why instead I like to cut in my new edges like this, and then I'll delete the edges that I don't want. But we may end up changing all of this anyway. Right, so we'll just do something like that, and then we'll kind of do the same thing we did before. So I'm just going to go to edge to edge with bridge. Then we'll do fill hole. And then we're going to try to match all this stuff up the best we can. So a lot of this is going to be just from here to here like this. And I mean, that might even end up looking okay the way it is. And then we'll just add some edges to match these. Actually, I'm kind of thinking, since I've got to smooth the other surface again, so I'm thinking I might try to be minimal with this. And this is going to be, this gap or where they meet up is going to be kind of hidden with this trim. So I'm not super worried about this matching up perfectly with the edges. I'm more concerned about this looking like a very smooth glass surface. Right, so that's my main priority. So I think I'm going to kind of go minimally here. And do something like this. Again, I want everything to have like nice round transitions. You know, or maybe not necessarily round transitions, but I want everything to look, I don't want jagged edges, right? That's kind of the main thing. Like this one's a little, and again, I know that a lot of you may think that, why does that matter? Why does it matter if it's just a little bit off? And trust me, coming from a messy artist background, which I very much consider myself a messy artist still today, it's important to get those smooth lines, to be careful. And something like this that's smooth throughout, it's just kind of important that you take the time to kind of make sure you get those things right. I think that looks pretty good. So let's go ahead and extract these faces. Yeah, let's go ahead and extract these faces. And then when I smooth, we'll hit this with a smooth as well as the rest of the car. Then all of this stuff shouldn't matter too much. So we'll go to mesh, edit mesh, extract. So now that's a separate piece. Doesn't look too bad. It does need to be a little bit more round. Right, so let's kind of try to do a very similar thing that we did before. I'm just going to select the internal edges or internal verts here, and we're just going to move them up a little bit and out a little bit just to kind of round out the windshield. And then we'll do this middle edge line just up and out a little bit just to round it out a little bit. And then we want to check our highlights. It looks a little funky along the edges, but that's because we have these extra verts here that I'm going to go ahead and get rid of. Except for that corner one, I want to keep that corner one. And let's just hit this with a smooth function and see what kind of result we get. Ideally, I think it should be a little bit flatter. I think that's pretty good though. I think when it's a glass surface, that's going to be very, not as noticeable. I'm just looking at it sort of like there's like a crease right there. But again, I don't think that's going to be super noticeable once we make that a glass surface. And we can always redo it, right? This is not the end of the world. We can always redo it. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and reduce it a little bit. So I'm going to get rid of some of these edges in this direction. And I think that will smooth it out a little bit more. So Control Delete. And I think that will smooth that surface a little bit more. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, so this is going to be the tough one here. This side window. This is a very sort of complicated shape. So how do we want to do this? I'm going to start by doing something similar, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to bridge this curve up to maybe this curve or this edge. So I think the main concept of what I'm trying to do here is just get a polygon surface in here that matches the profile or the sort of outline of this shape. And then we can kind of manipulate it and move it around. And we actually have two windows in here, but we're going to make them out of one window. So let's start by bridging this up with this one. So we'll do a bridge. And then I think I'm probably going to bridge. We're going to make a little edge loop right in here. And then I'm going to bridge this one with this one over here. Right, now I want to match this sort of from the top view here. I kind of want to match this curvature around here. It's going to match here, no problem, because we're going to fill this in. So all of this is going to match, but this one is not going to match. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make some slices like this. And I'm just going to bring them in to sort of match the profile of that edge. It's okay to leave a little bit of a gap. I don't mind a little bit of a gap because there's probably a little bit of a gasket or like a rubber, like the little felt piece or rubber piece that goes between your windows so rain doesn't drip down inside of your door. So, yeah, I'm okay with a little bit of a gap. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. And kind of the same thing. I just want this to kind of match the topology of this other one. And actually, it might make it easier if I just unsmooth everything while we're doing this. And then for these other ones, I'm just going to, again, I'm going to try to match the topology here just to make some slices. This is a pretty flat area here. Okay. Now we should be able to just fill these in and extract them and then kind of make the window out of these pieces. So we'll select this, go to Edit Mesh, or Mesh Fill Hole. I always get Edit Mesh, the things in Edit Mesh and Mesh confused. Same thing for that one. We'll fill that in. And then I'm just going to try to reconstruct the internal geometry for this. And then we'll give it a little bit of a rounded shape. And if you want to do it in a way where you get rid of like old geometry, right? So if I just want to cut a straight line from here to here, that's fine, right? If I want to get rid of that edge, that's okay. Right. So just sort of just use your best judgment. Whatever you think is going to give you the best result, just try to do that. And there will be some ingons in here. So there will definitely be some ingons that we're going to create, but I'm going to try to get a smooth surface without the ingons first. Or with the ingons just sort of hanging out there. And then we'll fix the ingons. So you see what I did there? You can use your multi-cut tool to just click anywhere and make an edge loop. So I'm just trying to get like a smooth, nice edge all the way along here. And again, same thing, right? If I want to smooth this out, just cut the edge how you want it, and then you can delete all of this stuff. Control delete all of the stuff that you don't want. That is my preferred method rather than grabbing verts and moving them around. I think you just get smoother results that way. I'm just trying to clean this up a little bit. And let's see, we'll take this one up to this one, and this one, make a little triangle right there. Again, I'm just using my best judgment, trying to fill this in the best way, the way that seems right. And then we'll add an edge loop that's going to come over and into this edge. Right, watch out for that. We can actually go ahead and extract this. I think I'm going to go ahead and extract these, just so we don't accidentally do what I just did, where we're running geometry in areas we don't want it. So we're going to go ahead and extract our window here. So we'll do mesh, edit mesh, extract. All right, so now we have this as a separate object, so we can sort of just deal with this as a separate object now. So now when I make an edge loop, it's not going to go throughout my geometry, right? And I'm actually going to delete this edge. That way my edge loop kind of stops right around there. And I'm going to make another edge loop. Whoa. I hit F. So I tried to frame that up. And again, I'm going to wait and deal with the ingons. First, I want this to be nice, smooth, really good looking geometry first. Oh, I keep hitting F for some reason. G and F are right next to each other. I use G quite often because that is basically repeat. It just repeats your last action. All right, so let's take a look at that with our wireframe off. It's all right. It's just flat. It needs to be round. So let's try to round it, the whole thing, just a little bit. So same thing. I'm just going to select all of my internal verts. And we can do that with our selection tool here. So I can go to this marquee selection and I just can kind of grab all of those internal verts all the way around. And then we'll move those out and up a little bit. And then we'll grab just that center line there, move that out and up a little bit. Smooth it, take a look at it. How does that look? I do not like that area right there, but the rest of it doesn't look too bad. We could also try this in our sculpting tool. We can try this relax tool, which will essentially try to spread out or give us nicer geometry or edge flow without changing the shape. So let's try using that. For this, to change your brush size, you're just going to hold your B key down. If you hold B down and then left click and drag, you'll change your brush size. So I'm just going to lightly sort of click on this and see if it will smooth out some of those shapes a little bit for me. And that may have made it worse. I'm not sure. I think I'm just going to need to like reevaluate that area there. Let's actually do this. Let's delete I'm going to delete this edge and we're going to delete that edge and see how that looks. Oftentimes, if you're having difficulty like having a smooth surface, if you just reduce it down to its simpler form, a lot of times that surface will smooth out for you. So there's still a little bit of a weird highlight right there. But I think if we go back to our modeling tools, and let's just make this one go from here to here. And we'll make this one go just straight. Let's actually go ahead and just straighten out all of these. Right, so I find that if I struggle having smooth surfaces, if I just go through and clean up my geometry like this, make it nice and even and straight, it will just smooth out those surfaces for me. This one, I just don't really like the placement of that edge, so we're going to make it just straight down. There's going to be some issues here, but that's all right. Let's, deal with one thing at a time. Maybe move this one here. Again, the key thing is that it looks good, right? That your geometry as in your edge flow, as important as it is to have really good edge flow, it's second to having a good looking model, right? Number one is having a good looking model. You have to make your geometry to work to give you the best results. So your geometry could be beautiful, but if your edge flow could be beautiful and you could have nice uniform edge flow, but even then you could have a very lumpy, wavy model. So that edge flow is like, all the work you put into that doesn't really do much because it's not a good looking model. So our number one priority is always just making it look good if we can. I'm not worried about this so much. We can fix that here in a moment. For now, I'm just worried about getting this as a smooth surface, and it looks pretty smooth. Yeah, overall it looks pretty smooth. This part probably needs some work. Probably need to dial this in a little bit right here. And I think we could probably just, again, clean up the geometry a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and delete all of these extra edges. So let's just to make sure I get all those deleted, let's just select them all except for our little corner right here and hit delete. Just to make sure we get all of those stray verts. Check out how this sort of goes in and around. I don't like that in this direction. So let's actually just see if we can straight line it like this. Right, just keep dialing it in. Eventually you'll get a nice smooth surface. It still kind of goes in a little bit, so what I'm going to do is grab these middle ones. And the way I like to do this is I'll move them out a tiny bit, and then I'll deselect the one on each end, move that out just a tiny bit, deselect, move it out, deselect, move it out, and that will start to round that surface out. Let's straight line this one. And then I'm just going to hit it with a smooth. There's some areas, right? Like this area right here. But I think this is okay for now. I think we can move forward. I may completely remake this side window. Or I'll tweak it more because I am going to cut these up a little bit. So maybe once I cut this into two separate windows, I'll tweak it a little bit more. But then the last thing I want to do here is just kind of match this up a little bit. So I'm going to use snapping to do that. So let me turn on my wireframe just so I can kind of see what I'm doing. And then I'm going to just select my verts. I'm going to hit my V key. So if I hold down V, that will turn snapping on right here. And I'm just going to sort of snap those up there. Back even with that surface again. Just the ones that need it, right? And let's grab this one and actually snap it over here. I don't think this is going to matter a lot if there's a little bit of a gap here, because if we're doing this exact car, we still have this sort of framing to do around the door. So I'm okay with there being a little bit of a gap right now. And then let's snap these. Just to get them lined up again. And again, this may not be the final iteration of this, but if I do decide to redo it, I will include it in a video. But I think for now, it's pretty good. I think the only thing I want to do here is this line right here. I don't like how it curves into here, so I'm going to try to straighten this out so it goes right into this edge. Like that. And then we'll figure out what to do with this guy. I think what I'm going to do is we'll delete that. And then we're going to go from here to here. And we'll delete this guy. And let's go ahead and delete this one too, just to keep it nice and clean. All right, so I think that's sort of good enough to move forward here. Let's smooth everything. Ugh, that's ugly right in there for sure. I definitely need to do something about that area. But again, for now, I'm just going to leave it. We'll definitely fix that before we're done. But at least I have some working geometry here. And there's other things that we can do to sort of get this looking cool that I can show you guys later. That might be actually a good opportunity for us to use quad draw on something. So I might use quad draw on that. Okay, so with that done, let's jump in and cut out the area for our reflectors, which we have one probably right around here. And then there's one in the back as well, right around here. So I don't like how this surface right here is kind of wavy. So I want to fix that. Right. And if we're looking at it from here, you can barely see that little crease right there, which is this one right here. So I think I'm going to be okay to just sort of reduce this down a little bit. So I'm going to get rid of this edge and I'm going to get rid of that edge and see if that just smooths that surface out a little bit. It's such a barely noticeable little crease right there. I'm not heartbroken about it if that goes away. So yeah, I think that's much better. All right, so in order to do this, we need more geometry here, right? We definitely need a lot more geometry. So we're going to hit this with a smooth function like this. And then we need to make something that we can cut that shape out with. So I'm going to create a cube. And let's jump into our... So it is in our side view, so we have a little bit of a reference point there. We're going to do this in a very similar way that we did our fender flares. So we're going to use booleans to just slice this out, and then we can kind of rebuild that surface a little bit. So it's like a square in a square. I'm not worried about the reflector part. I'm worried about sort of like the frame. Because if you look at the reflector part, it's kind of a different object that's setting behind that area. So I'm more worried about like this little frame area than I am the actual reflector part. So what I want to do is sort of build that out. So we're going to bevel these corners. And we'll do like two, let's see, maybe just one. Yeah, I think that'll probably be okay, but we won't just need some more divisions to hold its shape, which we'll have, right? And then, yeah, I think that's pretty good. And now I'm going to take this one and I'm going to extrude this face in. Not using thickness, whoops. All right, so we're going to extrude this face in using offset. So what I like to do when I'm doing this offset thing is I just like to get my corners kind of where I want them. And then if I need to readjust the size of everything, I can just grab, right? So let's go to vertex mode, and I can just like grab these 4 verts and move them a little bit in. And I'll grab these, move these a little bit in to try to match that thickness. And I will do the same up here, here. And then check this out. I want to make this an object that I can slice through this other object with. So what I'm going to do is just delete everything except for like the sort of shape that I want, right? So I'm just going to delete that. And then if I grab that and extrude it out, then I have like this piece here that I can just use to cut out here. So what we're going to do is slice it. So let's go ahead and first duplicate it, because I'm going to use the same one for the back. So I'm going to go ahead and Control D to duplicate that and just move it back over there for now. We want to delete our history on everything. Always delete your history before you do any sort of thing like booleans. I'm also going to freeze my transforms. And then I'm going to select this guy, shift select that guy, and we want to do mesh, booleans, slice. And hopefully not crash Maya. If your mesh turns green, that's completely fine. Don't worry about it. Now, it is subdividing again, and I don't want it to subdivide again. So we need to figure out why this mesh is subdividing again before I move forward, because I don't want it to subdivide again on me. And there is another way we can do this. We just have to be it just takes more work. So I want to try to do it this way if I can. So let me go ahead and grab this mesh, and let's do a mesh cleanup just to see if there's anything wrong with it. And it's got some UV issues, and that may be causing the issue. But just in case, what I'm going to do is select this, and I'm going to go to UV editing, and I'm just going to do an automatic map on it. We're going to re-UV everything, so I'm not concerned about how the UVs look. Right now they look crazy, but I'm just going to do an automatic map on this one piece right here. And see, it's not even wanting to automatic map properly. So let's try a planar map. Oh, there it goes. I think I just needed to select it. Okay, so that's an automatic map. So once we do that, once again, we're going to delete our history and freeze our transforms. And let's try the whole slicing thing again. It's mesh, booleans, slice. And it's subdividing again. Okay, so let's try this a different way. So we're gonna think about this a little bit differently. What you can do is just simplify your object that you're trying to slice, right? That's the best sort of way to think about this. Is if I'm trying to slice this complex object, this object's too complex, it wants to subdivide in order to slice it. Simplify your object. So I'm going to just select the faces that are going to be sliced, right? So I'm selecting all of these, sort of this block right here of these surrounding faces that's going to be sliced. Actually, let me move this whole thing down a little bit. Just a little bit. Okay. So I'm going to select the surrounding faces that are going to get sliced here. And I'm going to extract those. So edit mesh, extract. All right, so now we have we have two very simple objects here. So now I'm just going to, once again, I'm going to select both of these objects. I'm going to freeze transforms, delete history, and now I'm just going to try to slice this much simpler object. This way, even if it subdivides, right? So even if it subdivides this way, I can very easily reduce the subdivision levels and we can fix our problem, right? So even if it subdivides, it's not a big deal. So we're going to try it again. Slice. And there we go. It worked fine. So now I can take this piece and delete the history on it. So we just have our slice. And let's go ahead, since it's already separate from this, let's go ahead and try to get this looking really nice. And then we'll try to move forward. So the first thing I want to do is fix this in. Well, the first thing I can do actually is just delete this internal area. Right? That's going to go away. We can delete that. We can delete this internal part as well. That's weird that it gave us all that internal stuff too. But that is okay. We can just delete all the stuff. You know what I think it was? I think we had a duplicate object. This is like duplicate faces here. So I think I may have done something wrong where I double extruded or something like that, but that's okay. We can fix it. All right, so next I'm going to just kind of rebuild the internals of this piece. And sometimes it won't let you, so we just kind of need to clean things up a little bit first. So we can delete these internal edges here. And I'm just going to control delete them. Actually, I don't want to control delete them. I want to keep the verts here. So I'm just going to delete them for now. Because the verts are like what's holding the shape together. And I don't want to mess up the shape. I want to hold the shape together. So I don't want to delete any of these internal verts here anywhere until I get really nice geometry. Once I have nice geometry, I can go in and clean those up. But for now, I want those internal verts to hold the shape there. Okay. So we're going to rebuild. Oops. Come on. Sometimes multi-cut just doesn't want to work like that, like then. Which is okay, right? So like I got it to work there, not really on the edge that I wanted. Whoops. But I can just I can target weld that to the edge that I do want. Right, that one. Same with that one, right? Let's just go to like an edge somewhere that doesn't want to work. Let's just go from here to here. We can. Nope, it won't let us. So let's just do a little bit of cleanup first. I'm just going to kind of do something like this all the way around here. I think we have a lot of internal bad geometry here. So let's just spend some time cleaning that up a little bit. Okay, so let's delete some of these internal verts now. Whoops, don't want to delete that one. There's a lot of weird ones right in here, so we'll go ahead and get rid of those. And yeah, some of these other ones I'm not going to delete. We can delete some of them, but if I feel like it's holding the shape of something in a specific way, I'm going to try not to get rid of it. But I think we can be a little lax here. We don't have to be super strict. All right, now let's see. Let's just take target weld and kind of weld these to areas that we need them welded to. Let's see, for something like this, we'll go over there. I like using target weld a lot, and you can get rid of stray verts with target weld. You just weld them to an existing vert, and that's a really good way to get rid of them as well. Like these right here, I'm just going to weld those to an existing vert. Right. Booleans is messy. Booleans is a very messy process. So you just got to be willing to do some cleanup if you're going to use booleans. All right, let's see if we can kind of connect these back together now. I'm gonna just make a cut straight across here for this one. And we'll go, oops. All right, how does this look? There's some problems, right? We have a problem right there. Let's join this one, put this one over here if we can. Again, you're going to experience things like this occasionally. We can just wait and fill that in. And there are a few other n-gons in here. So let's go ahead now and connect this back up to our original piece of geometry. Right, so let's select them both and do a mesh combine. So now they're all one object again, or they should be. Let's try that again. Mesh combine. And then I'm just going to grab all of these verts here and do edit mesh merge. And anything that's right on top of each other, it should just merge them together. Right, and we can hit 3 on our keyboard to check that. Now, it looks pretty good, except for right here. This area is problematic. And again, a lot of times your easiest solution is your delete key. So let's delete that whole face right there. And then I'm going to go to mesh fill hole. If it doesn't fill, that's fine. What I can do is I can bridge it. So I'm going to bridge these two instead. And then I can bridge these two. And then there's a little bit of a weird thing going on right here. So I'm just going to delete that face and bridge it back together. And almost still an issue right there. Right, little tiny thing right there that I should be able to just target weld back up. Like that. And then if we smooth that, right, that looks pretty good. Now we need to cut it out and give it a little bit of thickness. So to cut it out, I'm just going to make a really tight edge loop around here like this. Let's see, maybe that's probably good enough. And then we'll delete that, and then I'm going to select all 3 of these edge loops, and we'll hit it with an extrude, and we'll do -1 thickness, and we may need to just add an extra edge loop around them to kind of sharpen that, because right now they're going to be very round, right? That's not what we want. So I'm going to add an extra edge loop right here on the inside of this one, and then on the inside of this one, and the inside of this one. And then we should get some nice sharp little gap like that. Now it does look a little bit thicker here, right? So what I can try is, let's delete this entire inner part. And then I'm going to extrude this in instead of extrude it in this way instead of back, if that makes sense. So we're going to extrude this in with offset a little bit to make that a little bit thicker. And again, we gotta watch out for how these guys overlap, but there's a really easy way we can fix these. We can grab them both. We'll grab both of those edges and scale those down. And then we'll grab both of these and scale those in. Let's see what that looks like. That looks a little bit better. Let's give it a little bit of thickness. And if I want to hold these corners a little bit more, notice how they're pretty round. I want them to be a little bit more sharp. I'm just going to add an edge loop in between each one of those corners. It's a small detail, so it's not like crucial. It's not going to break the whole thing. Probably never going to be looking at it close up like this, so it's not like a dire part of the model, but overall I think that looks pretty good. This one, I'm going to use the exact same method for this one that we did that one. I'll do this one in a time lapse. Let's go ahead and get, with the time we have left here, let's do this part right here. And then I'll just do this one in a time lapse, maybe in the next video before we move on to the next step, which for the most part, you know, once we get this in and the door handle, we're done with the body. And then we can just start working on little details like the grill and the emblems and things like that. So the trim, right? Like all the trim, all the little extra little pieces that are important, right? But we'll get to those. Okay, so for this piece right here, once again, I'm going to smooth this. I'm going to hit this whole door with a smooth function. And then I think this one's going to be pretty easy because it's just kind of a round indentation right in the door. Kind of like an oval shaped indentation. So first we need to figure out where that is. So it's going to be right in here somewhere. If you want to make it a little bit lower down, which I think is what I'm going to do, I'm just going to make it a little tiny bit lower down, just so we just have a little bit more room. So I think I'm going to make it in these, like this area right here where these 3 squares are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the shape of it. So I'm going to do something like this. And I'm just going to go right up to there with that one. And then we can just kind of delete. I don't want to delete those yet. But I want to round this out more. And so how I'm going to do that is I'm going to draw a line with my multi-cut tool to the middle around all 4 corners. And then I want it to be a little bit more round. So I'm going to go again with my multi-cut tool and do something like this. And then we can delete that interior stuff. So again, I would rather cut edges in where I want them to be than move individual verts around. When you start moving individual verts around to get the shapes you want, that's where you get like really wavy, weird surfaces. So I don't want to do that. We're going to take this one here and just go straight down like that. And then we'll get rid of this edge. Right, so now I have this sort of quad area here that I'm going to select those faces like this. And we're going to go with our extrude tool once again. And let's go in with thickness and a little bit of offset. It's not that deep, right? So we can check it, but it does have a very sharp crease around the corners, which we can get. But I think probably something around there is what we're looking at. Right, and then I'm going to add another edge loop really sort of tightly around this edge that will give me that fairly sharp crease around there. Something like that. And if I need to sharpen that up even more, I can. But for the most part, I think that's pretty good. Let me actually, I'm gonna make a small edit before we end here. So let me back up to this point. And I want to try to get this a little bit more along the lines of what we have over here because it's kind of tilted. I just don't like the overall shape of it. So I'm going to try to tweak it a little bit. So I'm going to take this corner, this edge, and bring it just a little bit further down like this. And then I'm just going to try to edit this shape a little bit. Again, I know this looks messy, but I'm making the edges I want and then getting rid of the edges that I don't want. Oops, we want to think we want to keep that edge. Get rid of this one. And again, I'm hitting Control Delete. All right, I think that will look a little bit better. So same thing, let's go ahead and select those faces. And we're going to extrude in with a little bit of thickness and offset. Yeah, I think that's a little bit better. And then I think what I'm going to do as well is, so this is kind of, I'm pretty sure this is kind of round all the way in, so it's not flat here. So to do that, let's clean this line up a little bit. Just go straight across. And we're going to straighten these two out as well. And I'm going to grab that edge and I'm just going to push it in a tad. And then we'll add our little tight edge loop in right there. And there we go. I think that's pretty good for that little detail right there. All right, so we're doing pretty good here. So just what's next on the docket is I will do a time lapse of me putting this reflector in here. I don't think there's anything weird on the back that we can't just build. Oh, there is actually. So I do want to model this little indentation in right here as well. So I'll do that in the next video with the time lapse, probably a short time lapse of me working on this. And then we'll work on this little area right there. And then we can start working on the trim. We'll do the trim, like all the chrome rubber pieces going around. And then we'll do like the handles, the reflectors, the antenna, the bumpers, right? The chrome bumpers. And after that, we can do the emblems, which are, I think those are a lot of fun to work on. All right, so before we go, let's clean up our scene again, right? So take everything, mesh combine. Right, so try that again. Everything, mesh combine. Delete the history. And then we'll do mesh separate. The one thing that you will probably want to do after you go through that whole process is just a lot of these things. When you do this, it will set the pivot point to the center of the grid. So a lot of these, as you're working, you may want to just reset the pivot point up here. I think you can select everything and set the pivot point. Yeah, so you just select everything and center the pivot point on everything. Let's duplicate. Whoops. Let's set our pivot point for a group back in the center of the grid. Like so. And we'll do Control-Shift-D. And yeah, it's starting to look pretty good. I think we're kind of in the weeds now, right? So to speak. Well, I guess not in the weeds, but we're at a point where a lot of the things that all the big work is done. I'll put it that way. All the large modeling things is done. So now this is a part where I start to lose a lot of people because they like to model large things, but it's a little bit more brain power to model a bunch of tiny things than a few large things. But you know, we have things like the bumper, the chrome bumpers, the lights, right? The grill, the emblems, all that stuff. But overall, we're on the right track. I probably will end up redoing this side window. The windshield, the front and back windshields look pretty good, but I will probably end up redoing this side window at some point. So, all right, I'll see you in the next video.